all enjoyed my recap breakdown of Season 1, Episode 14, Hathor. Like I say, this is one of my most favourite episodes of Season 1. I love this episode because Hathor is the first female Goa'uld that we see, obviously apart from Shireen that's made into Amanet, but that's sort of separate. She's not a powerhouse like Hathor is. Hathor was Ra's wife and mate, and together they had Hathor, which was their son, and Apophis was Ra's brother. And in a little bit more of a detail, we know that Hathor did have her own powerful empire, but when Ra imprisoned Ageria for betraying him, he needed another mate, so he made an alliance with Hathor, and then he forced her to leave her empire because he didn't like anyone having more power than him, and he was paranoid like that, so she was forced to leave and be with him, and she held that against him for a very long time. And because she was part of a coup drawn up by Seth to try and take over the power from Ra, she then fled. Well, it's not sure whether she was fled or banished from the Egyptian sort of kingdom, because what I didn't realise when I did the Ra video is when Ra encountered Earth, the other Goa'uld were interested because they was obviously in Unas's house at the time, and he had taken his human one. So what Ra did was he divided the Earth into sections for each Goa'uld, and that's fascinating because then we obviously learn how each one sort of took on the role of a deity of each culture. Like Kronos, obviously he was allowed the sort of Greek sort of part of the Earthworld sector as Ra given to him. Neti obviously the Indian, and you obviously China, etc. So I find that really fascinating as to how we know they became the personification of these gods. Yeah, and whether through being banished or she ran away, Hathor then went to Mexico, and after the rebellion she was stuck on Earth with no way to get off, and a priestess that was getting concerned about her influence over the populace decided to lock her in her sarcophagus. And then that's where we end up at the beginning of this episode, where some archaeologists come across her sarcophagus in Mexico and wake her up, and this is the start of this episode. So yeah, I just love the whole history behind it, and I love Hathor in general. She's a beautiful woman, and the character, and I mean the person that portrayed her, Swan Thorne, she's a beautiful woman, and she was the perfect role. I couldn't have chosen anyone more suitable for the role than her. I love the fact that she has Nishtar, which is the pheromones that she secretes to almost bend the will of the men to her side, but it doesn't affect women, so that's also very interesting. And of course, with my usual trusty illustrated companion, this is by Jonathan Glassner. I happened to be watching TV and saw that an archaeologist had found an intact crypt in Egypt where they thought there had never been one, reveals Jonathan Glassner. I thought, God, what if a Goa'uld was still trapped inside a tomb? I did a little research and found out that according to ancient mythology, Ra married his mother. So I kind of spun it from there, and yes, she really was a goddess of sex, drugs and rock and roll. In fact, the Black Widow legend is based loosely on her because she killed most of the men she had sex with. She was a nasty, nasty woman. Whilst according to Glassner, Swan Thorne, the South African actress who plays Hathor, was a delight, filming one of her scenes was less so. You know the scene where she was in the big bathtub and all those little baby Goa'ulds are supposed to be coming out of her? Well, we were in hell. We could not get that scene to work. We had near on 1,000 of these little latex wormy things, and we dumped them into the tub thinking that the churning water would make them slime all around her. Instead, they just floated on the top and sat there with water churning away underneath. It looked like she was sitting in a tub full of rubber things, and there was nothing we could do about it. We tried attaching them to fishing lines and having the crew off camera to try and move them around. We tried all sorts of bizarre ways to make them look alive, but nothing worked. Then the visual effects guys, gods they are, moseyed over and said, hey, you want us to fix that for you? They cut out each of these things, stupid little rubber things, in post-production and computer animated them. So it's all down to those guys that we've got the little critters jumping in and out the water. And like I say, there's a picture of Hathor in a tub. What I love about this episode as well is where we discover how essentially the Goa'uld procreate. I mean, we know from the children of the gods, sort of just the bare basics really, that there is a queen, and obviously that's sort of it really. And when Hathor comes in, it sort of gives us that much needed detail that we would like of how Goa'uld reproduce, and in that episode it explains it all. And this is what I find great about this episode, because it's that bit of knowledge which, you know, you've been wanting to know for a while, and I'm glad they didn't leave it until like season 5 until you found this out, etc. So yeah, I'm really happy that they put this in, and the fact that Hathor explains how, as a queen Goa'uld, how she creates a Jafar with her bodice that she wears that creates the pouch and takes away the immune system ready for a Goa'uld larva to be implanted, you know, and the fact that she then requires DNA from the participant. In that case it would have been Ra back then, so basically she has to have sex with them, and then she requires the DNA, and then that makes it compatible for all the larval Goa'uld to then be with that house. And you can imagine that when the Goa'uld was in Una's house, that must have been a bit, she does mention that she did find it more pleasurable with the human species than any other, so I like that they dropped that little line in there as well, because it shows like that sort of the age and the fact that she's thousands upon thousands of years old, etc. So yeah, it's really fascinating. Like I say, I put in my special video there of Supreme System Lord Ra. My next one will be on Hathor. I'm doing one of each of the Goa'uld System Lords, so keep your eyes out for that. My usual quiz question will be on Sunday. Hope you all enjoyed this recap, and please join me on an adventure through the gate. Thank you.